Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard?
Marriage isn't hard.
But I disagree. I think having a good marriage is hard.
Marriage is hard. It is.
It's the children. The children make it hard.
I don't know a married person alive who would tell you like, yeah, it's just roses all the time.
It's not hard. It shouldn't be hard.
Look at the divorce rate. People do not fail tests that are supposed to be easy. I don't recommend people my age get married, even though I am married and I'm incredibly happy. My brother used to say, the more you love someone, the less you like them. And I honestly feel this is kind of applicable here. There's some discourse that was sparked about a month ago, but it's been a lifelong phrase that we are very aware of, which is the whole marriage is hard debate. It's not even really a debate. People have just been saying it, and now people are like, let's question that one. As somebody who has been married for nearly 2 years, yeah, it's sad to say we're nearly there, and who had a tough first year, I kind of wanted to give my opinion as to my thoughts on this, because I don't believe that your thoughts on this can be black and white. They absolutely have to be gray and have a lot of nuance attached to this. Also, I do just want to say I have a childless perspective, of course. I think when we're talking about marriage as it relates to marriage with kids versus just marriage between two individuals, those are two different things, and I'm going to be speaking from the childless perspective. Before we get into it, let's define the phrase marriage is hard, so we can both be on the same page, right? Like, this is defined by me. So marriage, in my eyes, is two legally committed individuals in a joint union recognized by the law. Yeah, I thought of that one, yeah. And then hard is just objective. Like, we all think of different things when we think of hard, and it can be applied to many different things in many different contexts. As it relates to marriage, I think that's why this is sparking so much discourse, is because we all have different definitions of like hard. This turned into a debate because this TikTok was posted.
Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard? I have been in a long-term relationship with my fiance. We've been together for 6 years. In 6 years, especially in the past year, there's been a lot of heavy stuff that we've gone through individually and collectively. But throughout the hard stuff, I've never felt like the relationship was the hard part. Like, we don't have kids, and like, I'm sure that kids are another layer to adding stress, or like just a whole other world to navigate.
That TikTok sparked a ton of agreeers and disagreeers. Whenever I refer to the agreeers, it's the people that agree with the person who posted and said, I don't believe that marriage is hard because I think that I chose the right person. The things that we go through are hard. Both sides seem to agree that factors of marriage are hard simply because life is hard. Like, you will see that in so many comments from people who absolutely have no business being in the comments, being like, marriage isn't hard, life is hard. It's like, you are 13 years old. I think we all have the understanding that like, when you go through things in life, it's very difficult to deal with. When you go through things in life with a partner, that can be hard to deal with. People who say marriage isn't hard say the factors of it make it hard, not the union, the unity, the partnership itself make it hard. Okay, so it seems like both sides seem to agree that the factors of marriage make it difficult, but one side says it's only the factors, it's only the things that you will go through individually and collectively. Either way, at the end of the day, marriage shouldn't be hard because it's only the things that you go through that make marriage hard, that make marriage seem hard, but it's not hard ultimately. And then the other people are saying marriage is hard because of whatever individual reasons that they have. I tend to lean on the side of, I would say that marriage is hard just because, like everybody's pointing out, because life can be hard and because commitments can be hard. Commitments and life and lifelong commitments to somebody that you love has very difficult moments, and I am only nearly 2 years in, so really take my opinion with the tiniest grain of salt. But I also think that marriage is hard because, I mean, look at the divorce rate. look at the divorce rate. People do not fail tests that are supposed to be easy. A lot of people that have been in 2 marriages actually have come forward saying, I've loved the wrong person and that marriage was hard. Now I'm loving the right person and that marriage is not hard.
This is my husband, and I feel like I can offer a full circle perspective on this subject, and that's that marriage isn't hard. Being married to the wrong person, being married to a person who isn't capable of loving you in all the ways that you deserve, that's hard. The actual marriage, that's not hard. I feel uniquely qualified to say that because I was married once before.
I think it's very interesting how we all have very different experiences and very different ways of defining things in relation to our experiences with marriage, because I find them all to be incredibly valid. I just find that the people who say that marriage is hard just to be a little bit more real and honest.
Hello,
Hi, I'm Jess.
I'm Skylar.
We're married.
Yep.
We've been married for almost 5 years.
And we wanted to comment on this. Marriage is hard. It is. But it's the type of hard. It is hard work.
It's not bad hard. It's challenging. It takes a lot of work. I am autistic,
And I have ADHD.
and we are not great at communicating.
And we've been abused. And so for her, there's like a bluntness that I don't really understand because I was around a narcissist my entire childhood. And I have ADHD, and I think that I explain the point to death. And so it seems like that might be a point of contentions in our relationship. So we have to constantly try to like redo the Rubik's Cube to see eye to eye.
I would love, like sincerely, I would love to say marriage is easy. Loving my partner is the easiest thing I've ever chosen to do. Our marriage is easy because our love is easy. Like I would love to be able to say those things wholeheartedly because I do love my marriage and my husband more than anything on this world, more than anything. And that's no exaggeration. That's no exaggeration. Because it highlights the positivity of my marriage, you know, I think a lot of people want to rebrand the idea that marriage is hard because they do want to say, no, the positives and the value and the impact of marriage are much more positive than the fact that people are saying that it's hard, right? Like, I do believe that, like, if you define something and speak it into existence, that's what your experience is going to be in life. Like, if you say marriage is hard, your life could be more influenced by harder things because you're just expecting things to be hard. If you do say my marriage is easy, loving him is easy, this is the easiest thing I've ever had to do, you are either setting up your mindset for like complete success, like I am jealous of that, or potential delusion. Because I would love to hear from my husband, loving you was the easiest thing I've ever done. Loving you, being a part of our marriage, being committed to you for the rest of our lives is incredibly easy. I would love to hear that because I would love that positivity to reflect off of me and for like other people to know that he feels that way about me and our marriage. But just in our everyday lives, I just find that I responsibly cannot say that marriage is easy just because since we're throwing out kind of general terms like marriage is hard, I find that like the majority of people have to agree with the general statement in order for it to have even the slightest bit of truth. And if a lot of people are getting divorced, if a lot of people are recommending young people go against something as opposed to lean into something, which I don't recommend people my age get married, even though I am married and I'm incredibly happy. I think if there is any kind of doubt in your mind that you are not ready, and also it takes people who are ready to be married. I think that a lot of people go into marriage with this idea of what it could be, with this romanticized, a lot of like romanticized opinions and thoughts as to what marriage is, and then they get into it and they realize only when they're in it that it potentially just isn't what they thought it was. I think that there's a lot of already idealized, romanticized ideas of marriage out there that I just can't get behind. I just can't get behind it. I'm gonna share some of my very favorite points as to why I believe that marriage is hard through some of the TikToks. and then I'll talk about my own thoughts as to why I believe that marriage is hard.
I think the reason that this is such a good and confusing question is because the phrase marriage is hard has at least two distinct and almost entirely opposed meanings. Because when you say marriage is hard, you either mean marriage is hard like hitting a baseball is hard, or marriage is hard like calculus is hard. You can insert your own examples here, these are just mine. So if I were to say marriage is hard, I would be saying it's hard like hitting a baseball is hard, because it requires dedication and discipline and effort and time, a willingness to receive feedback, to put your ego aside. And also a recognition that you are going to swing and miss repeatedly, and you got to be able to just pull yourself back together and try again. And you do that not because it's easy, but because it's rewarding and it's satisfying, and it makes you and it makes your team happy when you succeed.
The thing that makes marriage hard is navigating the change together, because it's a really intentional act that requires a lot of emotional labor. It requires a lot of observance of your partner. It requires a lot of radical honesty. It requires a lot of radical compassion. It requires a lot of radical acceptance. It requires constant communication. It requires being very truthful with yourself about what you want, and then really truthful with your partner about how you're changing.
So I myself am married and have been for 3 years also. Marriage isn't necessarily hard because that's subjective. Everyone's experience is different. But what marriage definitely objectively is complex.
Like I said before, I just think that people who admit that marriage is hard are just a lot more honest. I just want to share some of my specific thoughts and points that potentially could have been brought up but are just from my heart. So the factors that make marriage hard are, I'm going to read them off this little list. Cohabitating with anyone is difficult. Cohabitating with your best friend, they always say don't room with your best friends. I think, and there are a lot of stories as to roommates who have turned into enemies. It's difficult sharing a space with somebody, especially that you love. You just probably have different ways of living, and you have to cohabitate and potentially compromise into doing it every single day for the rest of your life. I'd say that dating is easy because you cannot wait to spend every waking moment around the person that you love. And then when you do live together, when you get into conflict, you have to know how to handle conflict management. You have to know how to take space for yourself, but it's you are in the same exact space. What the heck? There's just a lot of different factors as to why just cohabitating in general is difficult. So I think cohabitating in a marriage, learning and adjusting to your partner's communication styles when they differ from yours is a challenge on its own, because you as an individual are learning what works well for you, communicating to the world, but communicating to somebody you're around 24/7, especially when it conflicts sometimes, can be hard, because you either have to just trial and error figure out how to communicate, or you already communicate well and work through conflict, or you have to ask outside people to help you do it. You have to potentially sign up for therapy to figure out how you guys are going to healthily communicate. That's difficult. Also, being real about compromise and resentment in a relationship is difficult. When me and my husband got married, I didn't really want the traditional wedding. We had to have the traditional wedding because I compromised. I did that because I knew it would make my husband happy, and I kind of persuaded myself into it. Cut to our first couple months of marriage, I had resentment because I hated the fact that I would have to go to work for paying off a wedding that I didn't even really initially want as bad. Being real about your resentments is hard, because it's hard to say, I wish this thing didn't happen, and it's happening and it's affecting our relationship. Going through hardships collectively and individually is a journey on its own. You will never see the end of it going through hardships, and you just have to react and communicate and heal and grow, hopefully together, but sometimes individually. And unless you're a therapist, we're all just learning on our own time. Integrating family and social circles. For me, that was difficult because I'm an introvert. I like my own friends. I don't necessarily agree with the idea of you should be friends with your partner's friends. You should all hang out in groups. That sounds like hell to me. Like, it legitimately sounds, not that I dislike my husband's friends, but I have my own interests, he has his own interests, we have our own lives, and we come together to share sometimes, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult because we have very different interests, we study different things. Yeah. One thing about hardships is that, like I said, hardships are ongoing. You have to learn through them, heal through them, grow through them. And me and my husband went through a hardship that we didn't see coming. Like, didn't see coming, had to really work through, tried and failed ourselves, had to go to therapy, came out much stronger after that. But that to me is just a testament as to why I just can never say that marriage is easy, because none of us wanted to go through that hardship. We had to in order to heal, to become better people. I do want to end off on a good note and mention why there are easy parts of my marriage, because there are really easy parts of my marriage that I do appreciate and am so grateful for, because I do not want to focus on the negative, because you go through negative things in your life and in your marriage, but you have to turn them into value and you have to turn it into growth so that you don't become hardened. You know, the easy parts of my marriage are every day I have the desire to give my partner love. Every single day, even when I'm upset at him, I still have that burning desire to just be like, to reach out and like give him comfort, or to have him give me comfort, or to want to make a really nice meal, or to want to go on a walk and have and do an activity with him. Every single day I feel the desire. And then in turn, another factor as to what makes life easy is just that I choose him every day. I choose my partner. I wouldn't choose anybody else. And at the age of 24, it's probably really easy for me to say that. There's been not a ton of tests throughout years or decades that would test that, but right now it's really easy. That's really just what I'm saying. It's like right now it's easy. Supporting my husband in his dreams is incredibly easy, especially because I see my husband being a very successful, hardworking person, and I just want him to have everything that he could ever want, and I would like to support him and be there for when he does get it. Lastly, this is something that I haven't felt with a lot of people my whole entire life, like not even like family members that I should have this with, but it's being authentic and honest with him. There are some people that cannot be authentic and honest in their relationships, and I think that makes it difficult. I can be authentic and honest with my husband, but sometimes that's what makes it hard. But the easy part is knowing that I can say things to him that are from the most unfiltered place in my heart and my mind and my soul. Like, I do appreciate that and love that. And I'm so grateful for the easy parts of our marriage. And that is why I think that although marriage is hard, the easy parts are incredibly worth it. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or night.